Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Mirror's associate editor, Kev Maguire, and the broadcaster and commentator, Ali Miraj. Welcome to both of you. Good to see you. So to the front pages then, let us start with the Eye reporting that the Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, expects that Israel will not heed international calls for restraint against Iran and will retaliate. Brexit is to blame for a shortage of drugs, which is putting lives at risk, says The Guardian. The Daily Mail leads on a poll which suggests the Tories are trailing Labour on defence, tax, migration and even Brexit. According to the Financial Times, the International Monetary Fund has told Rishi Sunak he must do more to curb UK public spending and that abolishing national insurance isn't the best way to achieve that. The Metro pictures Dubai's worst rainfall for 75 years, deluged, they say. The Sun reports that Prince Harry has officially registered himself as a resident of the United States. Well, don't forget, scan the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme and you can check out the front pages for yourself of tomorrow's newspapers while you listen to our guests. Let's head straight to Kevin and Ali Miraj. So, Lord Cameron in Israel, what did he come out with is kind of the question on the front page of the Eye, isn't it, Ali?
Well, what he came out with was he's trying to urge restraint on Israel, but a blind bit of good that's going to do because Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli premier, has said that thank you very much for the advice. We will do exactly what we want when we want. And there's no even mention of the fact that we really helped them with the shooting down of these drones. Now, clearly, the UK is a very strong and staunch ally of Israel. Israel feels that they have been attacked. They were attacked by Iran. Iran would argue that they were responding to an attack on their own embassy, which is their sovereign soil in Syria, on April the 1st. You could then go back and say, well, Israel will say, well, it was all Hezbollah and all the rest of it. The issue with all of this is could potentially lead to a regional conflagration, which is exactly what we don't need, particularly with the world economy where it is right now. And the problem with all of this is when you had the Cold War, there was architecture in place to try and minimise risks of miscalculation. You had strategic arms limitation treaties, you had hotlines. You don't have any of this right now. The difference here is you're not dealing with a poxy non-state actor like Hezbollah. You're dealing with the Iranian state. This is an ancient civilization. They've been through the Iran-Iraq war, 8 years. They will never forget the fact that the West was supporting Iraq in that battle until they decided to kick out Saddam. So the risk appetite of the Iranians is quite high. So they're not going to be bullied around. And the Iranians themselves are saying that they will then respond. This is exactly what we want to avoid.
Yes, such is the nature of tit for tat, as we all know. Iran putting its weapons on show today as well. Is there any difficulty of Netanyahu once again telling allies we're going to do it our way? When allies were so helpful, you might argue, in bringing down these drones and ballistic missiles that were fired from Iran.
Yeah, a tail wagging the dog. And, of course, the focus has gone completely from Gaza, the killing of the aid workers, 33,000 people, mainly women and children, calls for greater humanitarian relief. And all of a sudden in the UK, instead of a big discussion on should Israel be supplied with arms, should there be an embargo, you actually find the RAF is now doing the fighting for Israel and shooting down drones. And the question for Cameron and Sunak, the government, is what do you do if Israel does retaliate and it brings in fresh strikes? If you urge restraint and there is no restraint, do you then just get sucked into that Middle East war, which will be disastrous economically and maybe for the people of the Middle East too, losing their lives? So it's a big question. Like Cameron went, his tone has always been very sympathetic. He's quite firm, look, take the win, because it was a win. If you think the Israelis killed Iranian commanders, including a very senior general, in a diplomatic area of Iran in
a foreign
Syria,
nation.
yeah, and then Iran fires 3,000, more than 300,
yeah.
And they claim it's a great success. No, it wasn't a great success. It was the defence was the great success, shooting them all down, but that required Jordan, the US, and the UK to take part.
Absolutely.
So if Netanyahu wants to go off, do you just automatically follow? What do you do with a rogue ally? If they're an ally and they're acting rogue, what do you do?
Well, you've also got to think about what the long-term strategy again is here, because some in Israel are now saying let's use this as a pretext to try and take out Iran's nuclear capability, which is maybe much more advanced than we think it may be. And you know that under Obama there was this agreement to try and do a nuclear deal. Biden was thinking about resurrecting that. I'm not sure what's going to happen now, but some in Israel just want to play hardball with Iran. But the wider issue here is, and this is a question for the US as well, what is the US's Iran strategy? I mean, the US is Israel's biggest ally. What is its Iran strategy when it comes to supporting Israel, other than dividing the world into good guys and bad guys? And the Middle East, as we know, is completely shades of grey.
Well, interesting. I mean, you know, Israel says, how can we allow 110 ballistic missiles to be fired at our nation and not respond? But it has focused minds in Congress, is it not? We saw Lord Cameron heading there saying, get this aid going for Ukraine and obviously aid for Israel. And finally, it looks like the Speaker is bringing it to the floor for, you know, lawmakers in America.
Well, the Ukrainians are now asking the question why we're not shooting down drones from Russia.
Well, others are saying,
and they'll be asking NATO and allies that.
They are.
Why aren't we shooting down Israeli drones killing British aid workers?
It's an interesting one.
We will move on, shall we? We'll wait and see what happens again with that. There's the Telegraph. Netanyahu will make our defence decisions. But let us go to the Times. Inflation figures came out. Inflation fell. I know you're going to point out that still means prices are rising. But inflation falling more slowly than expected. So what does that mean, Kevin?
Prices are not rising as fast as they were. From 3.4 to 3.2. Expectations were 3.1, not quite there. But according to the Times, the government was banking on a whole series of interest rate cuts in the run-up to a potential November poll, hoping for 3. Now, the markets are pricing in just a single cut. There were 14 rises to 5.25%. More than 1.5 million people are due to remortgage this year. So it will really, really matter to them.
Jeremy Hunt has told our economic editor, Ed Conway, this is effectively a soft landing for the UK.
That's the thing. Look, I think Kevin should have been a little bit more blunt. What it means in terms of prices is that crumpets and chocolate biscuits have gone down. Both of which I've availed myself of today. So that's good news. It's 3.2% the inflation rate. It's not where it should have been. I think the consensus amongst city economists was that there would be at least 1.5% of rate cuts this year. Now that looks pretty unlikely. The same in the US, actually.
So what might be expected? People will be
maybe 0.5%. It's difficult to tell. It's difficult to tell, and it's anyone's guess.
Percentage point of
probably, because this is what is coming out now of the US. Because Jay Powell, the head of the Fed, has indicated in the last couple of weeks that inflation's stickier in the US. They also are going to fight that inflation for longer. And they're also now predicting, most economists in the US, the consensus forecast is 0.5%, not 1.5%. This is going to make it a lot harder for people who are refinancing their mortgages, basically.
Well, it's going to go up. If you're refinancing, you're going to go up. It's just how high you go up. But you're going to go up, so you will feel the pinch. So you're not going to be looking at the government, particularly every time Liz Truss pops up to remind everybody she's around and she was an utter disaster as a Conservative Prime Minister. It just isn't going to help them politically. So people are going to suffer financially, but politically it is.
And a lot of companies are pretty indebted as well that took on cheap debt during the crisis. They're also going to come to refinancing point. So there is going to be some pain. Hard landing, soft landing. We hope it's soft. But I tell you, just going back to the earlier story, if there's a conflagration in the Middle East, all bets are off. 1/5 of the world's oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz.
It'll be like Putin's invasion of Ukraine again, and inflation soared to 11.1%. Exactly. You know what happened with energy prices? No, I mean, that's why I think Cameron is right to urge restraint on Israel.
And just very quickly, in terms of the UK government hopes for the year, it being election year, one being pinned on interest rates coming down and people feeling a bit better about the economy. Secondly, was giving national insurance or reducing national insurance costs, which the FT, Ali, is suggesting, hold on a second, this might not be a good idea.
Well, that's going to be a dividing line in the election. You saw it at PMQs today. Starmer and Sunak sort of squaring off against this. What the IMF is saying, and we've had enough of experts, I believe, supposedly, right? The IMF are basically saying that, look, you look at your debt-to-GDP ratio. It's 92% now. It could go up to 98%, which is really too high. And what the IMF is basically saying is you can't have your public services in a complete mess, which they are, with NHS waiting lists above 7 million, police forces need more money, teachers need more, all sorts of things, public sector workers on strike, and yet you want to have American levels of taxation in the country. It's simply not going to work. The 46 billion now is being used by the Labour Party as a stick to beat the Tories with. just like Liz Truss, where's this 46 billion going to come from?
I've never had enough of experts when I go to the doctors or I cross a bridge. I must say, I hope the engineers know what they're doing. But because the IMF are saying, look, UK debt, along with that, the US, China and Italy, is too high. According to them, it's going to go up from 92% of GDP at the end of the decade to 98% because the NI cuts we're having now are largely funded by higher borrowing.
That's right.
And if you're going to, the price tag of 46 billion has been put on by Labour on getting rid of national insurance. That's employees, not employers. But you've got to pay for it somehow if you do it.
It's a difficult one, though, because we know that productivity in this country has been flatlining for the last 15 years, right? So this is the problem the government has. It's got 400 billion of borrowing on the back of COVID. It's got 2.5 trillion of public debt. The IMF's saying that the debt to GDP ratio is almost going to hit 100%. And yet, you need to stimulate the economy. You need to get people working. You need to increase productivity.
You need to fill the potholes.
Indeed, you do.
Sorry,
yeah, well, you do in terms of spending.
Just see the front of the Daily Mail, which feeds into all of this. Tories trail Labour on defence, tax, migration, even Brexit. An exclusive poll for the Mail finds 45% still don't want a Starmer government. We will have to talk more about that a bit later on. Too much to discuss already.
55% do.
Yeah.
So a majority.
Yeah. Welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me once again, Kev Maguire and Ali Mirage. Welcome back to both of you. Government might have hoped for royal assent on its Rwanda bill, possibly, but it did not happen. It's been kicked off into the weekend, or after the weekend. Yep. Deadlock over Rwanda bill set to delay flights until the summer is the suggestion for this double-page spread in the Times, Kevin.
Yeah, the Times, Matt Day from the Home Affairs editor is saying the plans for spring are all but dead now because, of course, if it gets passed next week, you've still got to go through the legal process and deal with the challenges which will come there from individuals. But what a hill to die on when you basically want to send to Rwanda Afghan soldiers who fought with Britons against the Taliban.
This is one of the amendments that peers are trying to put into the bill, and the government's saying no amendments.
I think the whole plan is immoral, expensive, and actually won't work. And interestingly, there was a poll out tonight which shows now 56% of people think it won't be a deterrent. Only 32% think they will. So even if the government says its spring deadline manages to shackle a few people kicking and screaming onto a plane out to Rwanda in the summer, it's not going to get that political bounce now, because I think the whole gimmick from Boris Johnson 2 years ago has been seen through. The battle's been too long. People have looked at the figures. They know how many people are coming, how many could be sent to Rwanda. The fact if you've got a criminal conviction, you don't get sent to Rwanda. You can't get sent to Rwanda. So, for instance, Zaidi, who threw some terrible substance in the face of the woman in London, wouldn't be sent to Afghanistan, or if you go out, to Rwanda, or if you go out to Rwanda and you commit a crime, then you're sent back to Britain. I mean, which, you know, you don't want to be there. What are you going to do? Okay. You're going to commit a crime and to be back.
But I'm going to move on, if you don't mind, because I've got a couple more stories. Deluge in Dubai, front page of the Metro, FT, everywhere, because of the question about why it might have happened, Ali.
Well, I mean, it's a bit of speculation whether there was cloud seeding going on or whether this is climate change related, whatever it is. I mean, you've got, 10 inches of rainfall falling in 24 hours? I mean, this is...
18 months of rain.
18 months of rain. I mean, this is like, let's say, the apocalypse, as one person has said. Clearly very, very bad for the economy there, for people on holiday. And it looks like, I think, Joey Essex has got caught up in this as well.
National disaster.
Exactly.
Get the armed forces alerted, get them out there. Bring
But
them
other
back.
Middle Eastern countries also, including Oman, have also been affected by this. So it's very concerning for them.
But isn't it, God, one of the world's great producers of carbon fuels?
Well, it did have COP28 as well.
Hit by climate change.
A little bit ironic. And it was quite lauded, COP28.
Yeah, drains and town planning, not set up for this kind of weather system.
Yeah.
Some suggestion from one source that it was dust clouds that self-cloud seeded. It was nothing to do with cloud seeding. Thousands of UK travellers struggling to get home from Dubai International Airport because of that intense storm, we are told. Emirates cancelled 7 flights, for example. So we'll wait and see if people do manage to eventually get home after, what must have caused some damage. Little cat rescued, mewing anyway. Let's go to The Sun. It's also on the front page of the Daily Mail, as we saw. Prince Harry saying goodbye to Britain.
Oh, good luck to him. I hope he takes his Uncle Andy with him. Can't we?
Won a prize at the polo match the other day. So fair play to the guys. Polo game's doing quite well there.
So Prince Harry has officially registered even himself as an American resident. Thank you. cutting ties with the UK. It feels quite final when you hear it like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, you can always come back, though. People do, don't they? Yeah. Should he wish? I mean, should something happen in his life?
He's not got rid of his UK passport.
You're subject to American tax regulations now. That's
should there be a divorce or something like that?